So what I want to do is I want to move the contents of this bin folder. Let me read the installation. So more install. All right. Unpack PyCharm where I wish to install the program. So I'm going to make a PyCharm folder in user local, probably. Yeah, I'm going to do that. ls user local. Lib. Yeah, okay. So I'm going to be root. And I'm going to make dir user local PyCharm. And then I'm going to move star user local PyCharm. And then the path that I want to use to execute this is user local PyCharm bin pycharm.sh. So I actually want to add that to my path in my .cshrc or .bashrc. Okay, so new project. And let's do just a simple hello world. And by default, there's going to be a PyCharm projects folder in my home directory. So let's do hello Python. So there's two ways of using the Python interpreter in my project. The first way is to use a previously configured interpreter. That's basically the system installed Python that has shared libraries with everything else that's using the system installed Python. And that's the simplest way to do it and has the least overhead. And it's perfectly adequate for these purposes. So first time you do this, you have to configure the location of the Python interpreter that you want to use. So there's really nothing here. So I want to add interpreter, add local interpreter. And I don't want the one in user bin Python 311. I actually want the one in user local bin. So that's going to be user local bin Python 311. And inherit global site packages. And I say OK. Actually, environment location directory is not empty. Oh, that's existing. Yeah. Okay, try that again. Okay, so previously configured interpreter is here. And then the other way of doing this would be to create what's called a virtual environment. And basically what it does is it makes a venv folder inside of your project folder. So there'd be PyCharm projects, hello Python, venv. And inside of venv, it basically makes a copy of Python and the libraries and a bunch of other stuff. And that means that your project has a self-contained Python interpreter and all of the libraries it needs for your project to run correctly. and any changes to the global system Python will not affect your project. And this avoids complex interactions between newer versions of libraries and things that break, basically. So by having separate virtual environment folders for each of your projects, you can make changes to new projects without breaking the old ones. So that can be handy, but there's also a lot of overhead. And if you're using fairly common stuff, it's probably not going to break no matter what you install. So that's what we're going to do here. We're going to use a previously configured interpreter instead of a virtual environment. Now, also by default, you can get a boilerplate main.py welcome script, and so we'll include that. And I'll go ahead and hit create. So here's my PyCharm. And in this main window here, you have editable tabs with your file contents in it. So my main.py is opened here, and it does syntax highlighting. It colors different parts of the Python program so you can tell at a glance if there are any typos and if everything looks correct. So anything that starts with a number sign in Python is a comment line. So we have some common characters. Then this def print high means I'm defining a function named print high, no spaces, because that would break this into two separate words, and you're only allowed to have one word here. So print high is the name of a function. This particular one takes a value that's passed in from somewhere else, which is going to be a name, and then it's going to print to the console, which is going to be your terminal, high, comma, and then the value of name that was passed in. And then in order to run this function, this little bit of code says basically, if you're running this thing from top level as a script, you'll learn more about this when you get to 133y and 233y. But basically, if you're running this thing as a script from top level, then call print high and pass in the value of PyCharm. So this is going to print high, comma, PyCharm when I run it. Now, I can run it inside of PyCharm by right-clicking on that tab and saying run main. And what it does is it pops up, this is like a console, and this is the command it executes. It runs user local bin python 311, and then it passes it the script home mark PyCharm projects hello python main.py, which produces the output hi PyCharm, and then the process exits. And I can do that myself from a terminal window. So here's my terminal. It's running PyCharm right now, so I'm going to Control Z and then BG to run PyCharm in the background, still in this terminal window. But I'm also going to CD / PyCharm projects, and then hello Python. So there's my main.py file. If I do python3 main.py, it prints hi PyCharm just like it did from here. Now I'm going to just add one line of code to this and call it a day, because this is not a class on Python. So I'm going to add the line name equals input what is your name question mark space. And then instead of passing PyCharm into the function print I, I'm going to pass the value of name instead. So now let me go ahead and run that from the terminal. What is your name? Mark. Hi, Mark. Now, you can also put a breakpoint by clicking on the area next to the line number, and then right-click or click on this little bug icon, this will run the script main.py under the debugger. And when you're running under the debugger and you get to a line that has a breakpoint on it, it pauses there, and you can look at the state of your program as it's running. So I'm going to go ahead and run it under the debugger. And I'm stopped at my breakpoint, which is why this line is highlighted. It shows me where I am in my program. I'm in main.py line 14, and I'm not inside of any function calls. Here's a list of variables, which I currently don't have any. But if I step over this line, so this little bent arrow is step over, if I step over it, it goes to the console and it asks me what is my name. So it's trying to execute this line of code. It says, what's my name? I type Mark and hit return. Now I'm stopped at the next line. So this step over stepped over this line of code. Here, I'm stopped at this line. If I go back to threads and variables, you'll see there's a variable called name, and the value of name is a string with the value Mark. So I'm on this print high line. The value of name is Mark. If you hover over, you can see the value. This time I'm going to step into the function call with this down arrow. So now I'm inside of print high. You can see this thing is called a stack backtrace. I was in main right here on that line. Now I'm inside of print high on this line. And the value of name here is still Mark. So if I step over that, I return back to where I called the function. If I look at the console, it says hi Mark. And if I step over, the program exits because I'm out of code. So for your assignment this week, I want you to not install Python if you don't have to, but do install PyCharm and go ahead and run PyCharm, make a new project, add this line of code, and run it under the debugger. When you're stopped inside of the program, like so, I'm going to go ahead and run this under the debugger again. I'm going to go ahead and step over that line. I'm going to type in my name. I'm going to step in to the function. And then right here, I'm going to go back to threads and variables. So right here, I'm paused on this line. I can see the value of the name variable. I can see how I got here. Take a screen capture of this window and submit that for your assignment this week.